In the next 30 minutes, Dr. Bawumia breaks the political truce, descending heavily on President John Dramani Mahama for revoking last-minute public sector recruitments made by the erstwhile New Patriotic Party administration. Tonight, there's more unfolding as labor unions, especially teachers and nurses, joining the fray in criticizing the directive from the Chief of Staff. And top story, as always, is brought to you by Telecel, connecting energies and holy insecticide spray and coil. Enjoy a holy sleep. I am Blessed Sogah. And as we're beginning to learn, he made a personal pledge to observe a political ceasefire, particularly to allow John Mahama settle down as President of the Republic. But tonight, Dr. Bawumia has gone back on his own vow and instead launched a scathing attack on the President John Mahama, who he says is violating his oath of office, giving the directive coming through from the Chief of Staff, Julius Deborah, a couple of weeks ago, an order that was issued and effectively revoking all appointments and recruitments made into the public service after December 7, 2024. The decision is beginning to attract a number of concerns, especially as labor unions are also joining the fray over the directive from the Chief of Staff. But first, though, why is Dr. Bawumia concerned about the directive, and what has he written about this latest directive? Joining us now is Kweku Asante, Parliamentary Affairs Correspondent, who's been monitoring details of this post from the Vice President for us. And Kweku, we need to be clear on this, that the Vice President, the former Vice President and leader of the New Patriotic Party, took to social media this time round and is explaining to us that he had indeed made a personal pledge not to comment and to allow John Mahama settle in. But given what's happening, he needs to comment. Why?
I'm directing all heads of government institutions to revoke.
And Kweku, apologies there. Kweku, if you can hear me, apologies. We just lost a very few seconds, so if you just take that point for us again. Yes.
Well, yes. The point is this treatise or this article that has been written by the Vice President is in relation to the 10th of February directive from the Chief of Staff directing the revocation of appointments and recruitments that were made after December 7, 2024. The Vice President says, and like he said, let me quote, he says, "This statement is released against the personal vow I made since leaving office. I made a personal affirmation to allow our new president and his government to get the needed space to get a hold of things and settle down quickly to tackle the important business of governance and by extension nation building. Having been Vice President for 8 years, I have come to appreciate the enormity of the task, a task that requires those entrusted with the responsibility of governance, especially the president, get the needed support and composure." So that is how the Vice President starts this statement, by saying that he had made a personal pledge that he was not going to comment in the very few days of John Mahama's presidency to at least allow the president settle. But because of some of these matters he considers very grave, he has had to speak. And he says, "I need to speak up on recent development that pose significant threats to our democracy. To look away while all these ills persist is to abandon my responsibility to remind President Mahama and his government of the overriding duty to live by democratic tenets." He says, since assuming office, the government of President Mahama has pursued a series of actions targeting individuals who were legitimately employed during the previous administration. It is ironic that a party which campaigned on the wings of jobs for all Ghanaians is arbitrarily dismissing the same Ghanaians, rendering them jobless, just because a different government employed them to put their talents to bear on the nation's development. The Vice President continues that the least a party that campaigned on jobs could do under conditions of unemployment is also to innovate and create jobs rather than dismiss people. Regrettably, these dismissals have been extended to directors who are public servants and not politicians. In some of these cases, livelihoods have been destroyed, and some of these persons are known to or related to politicians, as if to suggest that they cannot live independent professional lives. Furthermore, there is a general atmosphere of insecurity with attacks on journalists, the use of our military to raid homes of former government officials. So the Vice President makes all these points and conclude that Ghanaians understood the promise of change to mean discarding the ills associated with the governance of our nation since 1992, and also an opportunity to show the way for future governments. There is no reset by repeating or escalating what may have happened in the past. Therefore, I call on His Excellency President John Mahama to be a president for all Ghanaians by putting a stop to this development, reversing the unfair dismissals, and protecting our citizens. So, Blessed, that is how the Vice President concludes this article or statement that he has put out yesterday.
And now you have a number of questions coming up as to what exactly the directive from the Chief of Staff is. Is there some context to it?
Yes, the Chief of Staff writes and says that consistent with government pronouncement in relation to near and end of tenure appointments and recruitments, I wish to bring to your attention that all appointments made in the public service after December 7th are not compliant with established good governance practices and principles. The Chief of Staff goes ahead to direct that these appointments and recruitments be revoked, and the deadline given was 17 February. That is what the Chief of Staff gave. And we recall that following the election of John Dramani Mahama and the setting up of the joint transition teams, we had concerns from the NDC side of transition, and in fact, the now Minister of State in charge of government communication, Felix Fosu-Kwakye, did put out a statement sometime back in December, warning that some of these recruitment were at the risk of being revoked because they have real concerns that the government is seeking to burden the new government. They did have a back and forth on that. I recall that the former information minister, Fatima Boubacar, did put out a statement and say that the government at the time had a tenure that actually ended on 7 January 2025. And so it was their belief that they could go ahead and do this recruitment because their tenure had not expired. The NDC at the time, the incoming government, did disagree, but the recruitment did proceed nonetheless. The Chief of Staff, on assumption of office, then wrote to all heads of government institutions requesting for information on some of these recruitments that were made post-December 7th election. Those data did get to him, and then consequently, on the 10th of February 2025, he did issue this directive revoking all the appointment or recruitments that were made post-December 7, 2024, Blessed.
In the last few minutes, a number of Ghanaians have been opening up as to how they are being impacted by this directive from the Chief of Staff, Julius Debra, who we understand, of course, has been running a number of affairs at Jubilee House today, together with the President, who's holding his first cabinet meeting. We'll perhaps be getting you some updates as in when we have it on possibly what Cabinet will be saying further about this directive and the concerns coming through from the former Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who's now asking the President to stay true to his presidential oath and to keep all of these recruits in the public sector. Janet Asana Nabla is actually the chairperson and leader of the new political establishment which she led during the 2024 elections. She's also a member of the PNC. Thank you so much, Madam, for your time here on Top Story. I want us to get into the issues because these are very crucial ones. I believe that you've been on the receiving end of this directive from the Chief of Staff, correct?
Let me greet you and your listeners this evening. It's true. I have heard whatever is going on between the Chief of Staff, the NDC government, and then those that they recruited. We can't continue to allow our country to be run based on political sentiment. It's very, very painful that we politicians, we say things that we don't mean. because I remember during the time that President Mahama left office, and the recruitment that he made were the NPP threatened that they were going to sack all of them. He came out and said that if they do that, that would be harmful and then unconstitutional, and also would be a violation of the citizens, of the people that they employ, their rights. So I don't know when those words became acceptable that they also came into power, and then the first thing they did was to say that they are going to revoke recruitment, and then they went ahead to do that. This is unfair, and I think that it also violates the Constitution of Ghana, our Constitution. You can't just get up and then just revoke someone's appointment or revoke someone's employment just because that you have you're a new political party and then you are in power, so you have the power to do whatever you want. You can't do that because the Public Service Commission, they have rules and regulations as to how you can be able to dismiss someone from the public service. So as a president and a government, you can't come out, violate our rules and regulations, and just ask the chief of staff to write a piece of paper. And that piece of paper has more power than the Constitution. It has more power than the Public Service Commission. It has more power than everything. You can't do that.
What evidence? What would you say to anyone who walks up to you to say, well, there's no evidence to say anyone indeed has been dismissed or has their appointments revoked? Do you have evidence?
I don't have any, but I've heard a lot of the youth on TikTok crying, cursing, and saying so many things. Because the chief of staff said that anyone who was appointed during this period, sack the person, don't allow the person in. That's what he said. Now, those people are home. And then look at Felix Owusu Party, and then the reservations that the NDC is having. It is neither here nor there that some people, their appointment letters were backdated. If their appointment letters were backdated and you call the press, why don't you give names and telephone numbers of those people to the press so that the press can verify from them? But you call press are supposed to be doing using empirical evidence to do their work. They don't just speak in a vacuum. So for you to call and say that some people have said this and that, how will we know that it's true? We don't know, because what you said, no way, just statements without facts. So if you are thinking that they did not use the material to be there, we have rules and regulations in the Public Service Commission that the NDC government should follow. But something happened. The head of the NYE, I think Mustafa Bandi or something, they said that as for him, if you are not holding a party card, don't come to his office because he's not going to extend any employment to you. This is what is in the mind of NDC appointees. So if someone who has been appointed by the taxpayers' money, and then we put the person in a building that contains the taxpayers' money, the person can open his mouth and tell the taxpayer that you cannot come to my office, which was built by the Ghanaian taxpayer, to get employment because 6 million Ghanaians out of 35 million population are in power. And for that matter, the entire country should succumb and bow down to their whims and caprices. What do you expect us to do? So with whatever is happening in dangerous also, I want the NDC to know that they are trending on this.
Okay, but this is the point, Janet. The issue about propriety. Do you think it was appropriate, particularly when you had the transition team jointly issue a statement to say no significant commitments will be made in terms of monetary terms, be it employment or whatever stake it will be, and that all of these activities will first of all have to be put on hold to allow the transition exhaust its activities? Yet the president went ahead, made the recruitments, and approved all these people into the public service.
The truth is that the people, whatever was being done during the transition era was not it, because they said some of the recruitments were done in August, some in October, you see, some in November. So if and you see, what is painful is that the reason why Ghanaians change to NDC is now becoming a mirage. Because all the things that the NPP did that Ghanaians were angry and voted against them, the NDC are in power and they are now practicing the same thing in Gargantuan terms. Because look at the letter that came out. You know that when the NPP were also doing transition, they wrote a letter saying that every recruitment, blah, blah, blah. They just copied that letter. They copied it and brought it during their transition time. Then you will realize that these two political parties, they are twins. They are twins, and there's no any change between any of them.
Okay.
And whatever promise campaign was made by the NDC were not true, because we are now seeing it.
I see.
We are saying that they are not true.
Right. Interesting perspectives you're sharing with us. But in fact, organized labor is beginning to join the fray as well, with the likes of the Ghana National Association of Teachers also commenting earlier today. In fact, another group of teachers joining this is the Coalition of Concerned Teachers, who say that the president ought to take a second look at the directive coming through, especially bordering on the education sector. Let's hear from Adukwe Ayikwe. I will lie. I hope I got the name right. Who's the vice president of the group? Thank you so much for spending some time with us. The point about we're getting now in terms of the directive is simply targeted as at post December 7 recruitment. But you say you still have challenges with that if the chief of staff would have to revoke all these appointments.
Thank you very much, and good evening to all your listeners. The name is Adukwe Ayikwe Awuli. Thank you. I think we were all in this country when somewhere in October there was a publication where Ghana Education Service declared vacancies of about 20,000, and there was the need for about 20,000 teachers to be employed to fill those vacancies in the Ghana Education Service. When you come to the education sector, it is not like when you go to a school, you find teachers who are overstaffed, or you find a school where the teachers are overstaffed. No, it has never happened. We rather even need more teachers to fill some other vacancies, especially in the rural areas. So it is uncalled for, it is unheard of for somebody to say that because you are a teacher and you have been employed in October 2024, and because it is a new government, your appointment should be revoked. As a matter of fact, how will the NPP government even know that on December 7th they will be voted out of power? So they have to do recruitment way back in October 2024. It is not like after the elections before those who take place like that.
Yeah, but if you raise that, the question would be that how about the president himself? He was exhausting an 8-year mandate, knowing too well that he was not returning to office.
So there should be vacancies. There should be schools without teachers. The teachers should be overburdened. You have one teacher not going on vacation, especially when you go to the schools where there is this so-called double track. You find a teacher who will be in the first track, and then the second one, and then come back again, and they have no holidays. And 20,000 vacancies have been declared. And the teachers are there, they fill those vacancies. We have more vacancies because teachers are going on pension. So, if for anything at all, when it comes to the education sector, we shouldn't politicize those things. So, because the president knew that he would leave office by 7th of January 2025, there shouldn't be any recruitment in October 2024 to fill those vacancies. Are you going to, will the new government pay?
Yeah, but let's be clear on this. The directive from the directive coming through from the chief of staff was quite clear, isn't it? Talking about post December 7 recruitment.
Yes, but when it comes to the education sector, the new director general have issued a letter or a circular that teachers who were employed way back in October and have not been put on salary yet, or still yet, the appointment should be revoked. And it is based on the letter that came from the chief of staff. So if it is post December 7th, then we are okay with it. Then it means the new director general should be directed to ignore that letter.
If indeed the Director General says his directive to you, the teachers, will stand, what are we likely to see from your Labour front?
It will not stand. There are over 20,000 teachers. It will not, we're all in this country. We will use diplomacy. It is a new government. We will ensure that the right thing is done. But if we are at our wit's ends, everybody will hear of it.
Which means what exactly?
Everybody will get to know the next line of action. But now we are using diplomacy. Let's use diplomacy.
I'm wondering what that diplomacy is yielding as of now in terms of results for many of your members.
It's a new government, definitely. And we know they might take certain actions or inactions that will not be in the best interest of Ghanaians, especially when it comes to the education sector. And it will be because maybe they've not settled down yet. We have a new Director General. He's not been in the education sector. He's not settled. So we are going through the back door. We are talking, and we hope they will listen.
This is the point, that even if you have the appointments of these quote-unquote post-December 7 appointees revoked, the government hasn't clearly stated what it will do in the future. They haven't said otherwise, that they would not make any fresh recruitment into the educational sector. So that should allay your fears, isn't it? That the vacancies that you're talking about, the need for teachers, all of these things will be fulfilled by the government, isn't it?
But those vacancies that were filled were in the right direction. They should have been filled because there was the need for teachers to teach those pupils, those students. So they were employed to fill those vacancies. They have not been employed just to come and add up to those teachers who were already there. They were working. So at the end of the day, are they going to be paid for the 4 months that they've worked? October, November, December, January, and we are even in February, getting to 5 months. Are they going to be paid? Or it is for free? Or they will recall them again? But they should hold on. We are looking into it. We will recall you. That is why I said we are using the back door. We are using diplomacy. We are talking. All these things will come to bear. And then at the end of the day, I know we will get to a middle point where we will all agree and do the right thing. I'm sure of that.
We're wrapping up, Janet, the point about the way forward. And what appeal should we be making to the president now?
To us there, from the People's National Party, we will say that the president should adhere to the cry of these people. Because people I don't know where his power lies on. Because look at these organized groups that are now against. And I'm happy because it means our democracy is now working. The fact that we are president and we are government doesn't mean that you can come in and use our resources to do whatever you like or use our resources for your party foot soldiers. You can't do that. The resources of Ghana belongs to Ghanaians, whether you are a card-bearing member of the NPP, NDC, MPP or not. You are supposed to enjoy from the benefits of things that comes out of the country. So I'm happy that these groups are putting a pressure on the government because the government has only a 4-year mandate. And I'm saying that he's now trying to do things for his people and then just go away. He doesn't care doing things that will bring create an enabling environment for the entire country. He's thinking of what he can do to help his party people. And the people of Ghana are saying no to that. Because we told him before he came into power that this time is not going to be politics as usual. Create an enabling environment, and whoever is eligible to a benefit will benefit. But don't come and pick the small food that was given to others to give to your party food soldiers. That is not how this country is going to be run. The way of doing things in the past is no longer here. It's no longer here. So we will not correlate that type of politics anymore. The NPP and the NDC have made Ghanaians to go through and do things, and we will not allow them to continue to create this type of anxiety in our country. So I'm happy. Organized groups, the groups that are rising up against the government, they should rise up. We are not going to agree. We are not going to agree. They cannot revoke those recruitment. They can do that.
Okay. Grateful for your time. Janet Nablaus, chairperson for the People's National Party, joining us here on Top Story. And to you, Ayikwe, Vice President of the Coalition of Concerned Teachers. Perhaps you have any concluding remarks on this? And I'm just wondering if you have any concluding remarks on this, Ayikwe, as we wrap up.
Thank you very much. But we should streamline things in this country. At which point should the government would work again? Is it 6 months to election? So they shouldn't recruit even doctors when the people are dying, or nurses or teachers when there are vacancies, because it is 6 months or 1 year or 2 months or 3 months to election. I think we've got to come up. It should be a national program. Everybody should come on board so that we'll streamline things, so that this thing will not recur again. So that we will know that if it is 3 months to election, don't recruit. Even if people are dying, don't employ new doctors, don't employ nurses. Even if there are vacancies, don't put in new teachers. If it is 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year, let us know. We should all talk and then know the way forward. Thank you very much.
Top Story with Blessed Sogah. Next is Newsnight.
Auntie T, I beg, fix me go betete Ghana. No gari, no oil, no plantain, just beans then eggs.
Hey, brah, that be dangerous combination, no.
Problem no day. I feel handle am.
For Telecel, with the Bob say everybody gets what they like. That be why Made For Me bundles day. Based on your usage, you fit get your own data and call packages. Fala! Made For Me bundles like the way you the want them. That *530#, then buy Made For Me bundles today.
Telecel, connecting energies.
Couldn't sleep at night. Mosquitoes will be whining in my ears, bugging me all night long. Till I got a remedy. Now I'll be spraying them away with holy insecticide spray. Me I go spray them away with holy insecticide spray. When I sleep, me dana mada with holy insecticide spray.
Holy mosquito coil, holy multi-purpose insecticide spray. Dana kron kron. For bulk purchase, call 0302 681582. This advert is FDA approved. Live on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra and Kumasi on Love 99.5 FM. Affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions, myjoyonline.com. Good evening and welcome to Newsnight. Tonight, Finance Minister reviews to President Mahama's cabinet. The economy is in a much worse condition than previously known before the elections, just hours after the president told organized labor that his discoveries suggest a criminal handling of the economy of Ghana.
We all knew the economy was in crisis, but some of the things I'm discovering myself has been a criminal handling of our economy. And Ghana is a crime scene, actually, because how a government can have been so reckless, I cannot understand. Our options are very few.
We have details on the newly unveiled cabinet, along with assurances that the government is on track to implementing the 24-hour economy policy. Plus, President Mahama's plea to workers to accept new minimum wage and 10% base pay as he paints a picture of doom and gloom about Ghana's economic situation.
And so I've told him, I said, cut expenditure as much as you like. Even in Office of Government Machinery, cut as much of our budget as you like, because we all must make those sacrifices. And so I'll just appeal to you that temper our demands for this year. And when the cake is baked and is bigger, we'll share bigger.
What is Labour's take on this? We'll get to hear from them, plus reactions from employers as well on this matter. Also, a case of compliance and defiance at the same time is a perfect description of the first day of Clack strike, as scores of clients are left stranded as the division among workers linger.
I came here actually to do my birth certificate, and quite unfortunate, I didn't meet up with anyone here, so I decided going back home.
I want to do my traveling process. It will really affect me badly.
We have details as deadlock between government and leadership of Clack deepens over the appointment of the new Registrar of Births and Deaths.
I think government's position has been made clear through the briefing that I made yesterday, and I do not anticipate that it will change.
In business, President John Mahama directs Finance Minister Dr. Atuforsen to drastically cut government expenditure in the 2025 budget.
And in sports, President of the Ghana Football Association, Kurt Craig, will commit to ensure enhanced safety at the various match venues as he visits Kumasi and Tukotoko following the death of their fan.
And then much later, MP Fwakwetia appeals his conviction for contempt of court as he files an application to stay the execution of the judgment.
Legal steps have been taken. A notice of appeal has been filed against the ruling of the High Court at the Court of Appeal. An application for stay of execution pending appeal has also been filed at the High Court.
We'll have details of that, as Minority also described the judge who convicted their colleague MP as biased.
When you are dealing with someone who can now be termed a biased judge and you are not too sure of what he stands to do next, you don't share your strategies out.
We have details of that and more here on Newsnight. You want to join us with your thoughts, your comments, they are welcome. Is via WhatsApp 055 1111 997. I am Emefa Apawu. I have details shortly. Many thanks for sticking with us. This is Newsnight here on Joy 99.7 FM with me, Emefa Apawu. Now, tonight, Finance Minister Kasiel Atuforsen has revealed to President John Mahama's cabinet that the economy is in a far worse state than previously known before the elections. Well, this was disclosed by presidential spokesperson Felix Kwakye during a press briefing after President Mahama's first cabinet meeting today. And I'll give you the composition of that cabinet shortly, but more on that in a moment. But this revelation comes on the same day President Mahama, during negotiations for base pay with organized labor, stated that while it was known that the economy was in crisis, some of his recent discoveries suggest a reckless and possibly criminal mismanagement of the economy by the Akufo-Addo-led government. Listen.
Comrades, you know we are your natural allies, and we've worked together for many years. One thing that is a cardinal principle for us is to tell the truth at all times. We all knew the economy was in crisis, but some of the things I'm discovering myself, it's been a criminal handling of our economy, and Ghana is a crime scene, actually, because how a government can have been so reckless, I cannot understand. But we're faced with a reality, and our options are very few. We can behave like the ostrich and hide our heads in the sand and let the economy crash. But then what effect would it have on Ghanaian households and everybody? And so I've told him, I said, cut expenditure as much as you like. Even we ourselves in Office of Government Machinery, cut as much of our budget as you like, because we all must make those sacrifices.
Well, these are issues we'll be getting into shortly, but we can also listen to presidential spokesperson Felix Kwakye, who stated that during the first cabinet meeting, Finance Minister Dr. Kasiel Atuforsen revealed the economy is in an even worse state than previously known before the elections.
As you may be aware, we campaigned strongly on Ghana's failing economy, and indeed, our fears were borne out when the finance minister made his briefing. The situation is dire. The numbers are even worse than we had known in the period of the elections. But the minister, the president, and others involved in the management of the economy were confident that the proposals, the policy propositions, and the program that President Mahama has put on the table were sufficient to turn around the situation and lift the pall of economic hardship and despair that has hung over this country and its people all these years under the new patriotic party, where economic mismanagement and imprudent decision making was commonplace. In a few days' time, President Mahama will be addressing Parliament. He will be delivering a message on the state of the nation to Parliament, and he will take the opportunity to delve deep into our current economic state, what we inherited, and what plans there are going forward to ensure economic revival and resuscitation. A few days after that, the National Economic Dialogue will take place from the 3rd to 4th March, and there too, further insights will be shared on the state of the economy and how we can collectively achieve consensus on the steps that need to be taken to ensure that we get out of the situation and are on the road to rapid economic growth and development. And then on the 11th of March, the Finance Minister will present his first budget, which would again explain the situation and indicate what government's policies are in respect of the economy and what measures will be rolled out going forward to achieve the objective of getting us out of this economic mess.
Well, Felix Kwachiofosu also announced that the Minister for Energy and Green Transition will in the coming days address Ghanaians on concerns about the intermittent power supply issues.
What I can say is that the Energy Minister is aware of the situation, and in the coming days he will be engaging the public on what the threats that we faced at the very onset of this government, which related to the closure of the West African gas pipeline and the failure of the previous government to meet its obligation of providing fuel for thermal power generation, was averted. Government has brought in adequate supplies of fuel, but it is important from time to time to engage the public to address concerns that they may have. The power situation, the Energy Ministry will be doing that in the coming days. Okay.
Well, I'll get more from that briefing, plus who makes up or the composition of President John Mahama's cabinet. Presidential Affairs correspondent Maxwell Agbagba joins us. But it is important that I get immediate reaction to some of the issues that has been raised by both President John Dramani Mahama himself, mentioning to Labour that indeed he's seen a crime scene, in fact, a reckless mismanagement of the economy. You've heard Felix Kwachiofosu also describe it as a dire situation, economic mismanagement, imprudent decisions were taken, for which reason he's asked Labour to at least accept the 10% base pay increment for now, and that when the cake gets bigger, in the words of President Mahama, they will do something about the situation. The Finance Minister has also been directed to cut down on expenditure, even if it will affect the presidency, so that inflation, amongst others, will be stabilized. Then Labour can get what exactly it is that they are looking for. Let me bring in Dr. Tia Kabiru Mahama. He works closely with former Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia on issues about the economy. He joins us on the line. We are grateful for your time, Dr. Tia Kabiru Mahama. Well, listening to the President himself on this matter, describing the situation with such doom and gloom, insisting that it does appear that you left a crime scene as a country. Really, how did we get here? What exactly did you do to leave us in such a state?
Thank you very much, Emefa, and then
Call me later.
Sheriff, listeners. Mr. John Dramani Mahama, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, is the number one diplomat of the country. He should, in his utterances, words, actions, and demeanor, carry or exude hope and carry the nation along. Inspire confidence in the investor community. But if the president is so minded to shortchange Ghanaians, the working class, and will want to paint a very bad picture of the economy in order to call the sympathy that will allow Labour to agree to the 10% rise in base pay, it's unfortunate. I'm careful with the choice of words because the president of the republic is supposed to be the number one person with all respect. But if the president decides to use words that are unpresidential, just because the president wants to paint a bad picture of the economy and by extension shortchange labor.
What is unpresidential about the comment if he's actually telling us what the true state of the economy is? How do you want him to say it?
The true state of the economy is the fact that Ghana is a crime scene. Is that the true state of the economy?
It's not.
So those are the concerns. But let's even come to the numbers. They say the numbers are bad. What numbers have they provided you?
At least he tells us that when he presents the state of the nation, all the picture will be put out there.
So wait to provide the numbers, and then we interrogate the number. You've not provided the Ghanaian people any single number. And you are telling the Ghanaian people that the numbers are bad. What numbers? If we are talking about numbers, recently they paid 6 billion to bondholders under the DP, debt exchange program. Where did they get the money from? The end of year revenue that was left for them under the Minister of Finance, Ole, was 3 billion. That was what helped them to be able to pay. Excess, in terms of auction, excess of 700 million was left for them. Every single day, the Ghana Revenue Authority rakes in revenue. They had to do clearing of accounts. In fact, they have to sweep across every single account by every public institution that is held by the Bank of Ghana. Money was found in those accounts, and they used the money to defray certain obligations. So if the same government is coming to paint a picture as if nothing was left for them and they came and met nothing, when you are meeting obligations on the back of revenue that was accrued, a lot of actions or intervention by the previous government. We admit, we all agree that times were not of the best. The country was in difficulty. We can't pretend that every Ghanaian was okay. We can't pretend mood for every Ghanaian. These are the realities. But
so Dr. Kabiru,
you don't go painting this gloomy picture, this bad picture of a nation you are leading.
It is your view that he was attempting to shortchange labor in the process. That's your view.
That is exactly what he wanted. He wanted to call their sympathy to make sure that they don't get what is due them. But you can't promise people of a better living standard, and you want to renege in those promises. I will not be surprised that in the budget they will introduce taxes contrary to their promise of reducing taxes, because all this is a build-up. Build the momentum towards visiting Ghanaians with hardship by way of fiscal policies. Here they mentioned, they preempted that the energy minister coming to brief us. I will be certain, and I wish they prove me wrong, they are going to increase energy utility prices.
Well, we'll wait for that, but I'll find out from you, at least, the number of descriptions we're giving in terms of what it is that your government left behind. A dire situation. He's talked about economic mismanagement, imprudent decisions, recklessness of the highest order they talk about. You've rejected the crime scene. Rejecting all these descriptions of what exactly it is that the Akufo-Addo Bawumia-led government left behind when it comes to the economy.
You cannot just throw negative adjectives in describing the economy without providing numbers, without providing examples, without providing indications to support those adjectives. If you say there was reckless management of the economy, by what yardstick? You get the point I'm trying to make. If you say there was, mismanagement, by what yardstick? So you have to pin down to specific thoughts that the Ghanaian people can go along with you.
Okay.
We can determine specifically. This is what you are referring to.
Stay with me briefly.
Argue and debate on that.
Stay with me briefly. At least I can get some answers from Shamima Muslim, as a deputy spokesperson for government. Thankfully, joins us on the line with some more details on this. Shamima, we are grateful for your time here on Newsnight. So we've heard the president and his plea to Labour on the situation when it comes to Ghana's economy. We've heard Phyllis Kwachiofosu also tell us about the situation as it pertained in cabinet. But it does appear that we have not been provided with the full details in terms of numbers to back the adjectives like Dr. Tia Kabiru puts it. What exactly are the figures or the numbers showing such that the president can describe this as a crime scene?
Well, I'm going to have to disappoint you further. Good evening, Emefa. If the numbers is what you seek tonight, because the numbers will be provided when they will be provided. I think if you listen to the Honorable Felix Kwachiofosu, he has alluded to that in the coming days on the State of the Nation address, we would hear the real state of the nation. On the 3rd and 4th, there's an economic dialogue at which the finance minister speak, at which he would also share with the general public the real state of our economy, the economy is indeed in an intensive care unit. Dr. Kabiru speaks labor. He suggests that organized labor can be bamboozled without any basis to accept a pay that is inadequate. I think that is quite disrespectful to the intelligence of organized labor, because the pinch of the depressed economy under the previous government that Dr. Kabiru was part of, it is labor. It is labor whose income could not meet their living and daily expenses. It is labor whose savings were eroded by the volatilities in our cedi to dollar, issues. It is labor whose investments were by the DDEP. We are not saying things that the Ghanaians haven't lived through. It is Ghanaians, real families, real stories. Real life stories that were affected by the mismanaged economy of the outgone government. And so we cannot pretend that we are not aware of where we were as a nation with our economy upon the exit of the new period.
Well, he admits, at least the previous government and officials of that previous government admits that it was not all rosy, or they don't seek to make it or paint a picture of all rosy situation. But if we hear adjectives coming up like the recklessness that we've seen, and then all the president's mentioning that for him, it does appear that Ghana is a crime scene, we're hoping that at least the patient that is in the intensive care unit would know what exactly is happening to the patient. Once you're giving us the situation now, do we have to then wait?
I am happy Dr. Kabiru himself conceded that things were very, very bad for the majority of Ghanaians. I am also happy that he understands that head cut is not a positive word. Head cut is not a positive word. It is negative, and that is how negatively affected the people of Ghana were by those policies they put in place as a result of their own fault, because they were cautioned when they were excessively borrowing. They were cautioned that the investments needed to recuperate and recover these investments were not being done. So they were aware, 88 MPs cautioned them against where they were heading, and yet we were told by the former finance minister that we were a proud nation at the time that the signs were clear that we were heading towards an IMF program. They were still being quiet in transit. We have lived through this period. Emefa, you have reported the economy. So if today we are telling to you that the picture was actually worse, governments would always fudge figures. It's like economists. They will use figures to tell you the story that at least covers them a bit. It is upon their exit, when you really go deep between the lines and read the fine print, that you come to be aware of the real state of affairs.
Okay.
And so we have said that it will not take a month or a year. In just a few days, we will put out these figures and statistics that will confirm what you and I already know about the state of the Ghanaian economy, which currently is in an intensive, care unit. It was a blessing to the people of Ghana that the NPP was voted out. In fact, Dr. Kabiru should not be concerned about, what signals we are sending to the international community. They know more about our state than we give them credit for. And so it is because of that change in government that this goodwill is coming, that labor itself, upon seeing and hearing exactly where we are as a nation, that they themselves know, were able to compromise and take the 10% increase in base pay.
Okay.
And we respect them for that, and we acknowledge the sacrifice that labor is willing to make, so we all build this country together, because it will take all of us making the right sacrifices, leaders alike and as well as the general public, that can recover and reset this nation. We will not tell labor to sacrifice, whereas the ruling class is living lavishly off, of the resources of the states that are even not enough. And that's why the president has indicated that even if it means cutting budgets, and already we have seen it, we have reduced ministers from the previous number to 23 ministries.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it here, Shamima. We are grateful for your time. That's the Deputy Government Spokesperson, Shamima Muslim, there interacting with us. Kabiru, so it does appear that it's a situation that you're aware of. We can't pretend the situation is a bad one.
Emefa, one, you don't see that it's a disrespect to Labour. Even in the midst of the difficulty, the government never gave Labour 10%, 30%, 15%, even in the midst of the height of our challenges. So that same government cannot be insensitive, cannot disrespect Labour. That is one. Two, the government seems to be behaving prodigal son with the cherry, but complaining about the lost apple. Right? The Ghanaian people took a decision to vote the National Democratic Congress to power. Your decision now or your action now is to rule and govern and deliver on the promises you made to them. You don't go complaining about lost apple. Right? So, and they are so speaking as if we are still in a campaign mode. We are not. Ghanaians have gone past that. There's a mandate given to the NDC to rule this country. And that direction was made clear, manifestly adequate, and abundantly clear by the good people, by the overwhelming majority they gave them. So they don't complain about the lost apple when they are holding the cherry in their hands. So all this, and as you said, why do you rush if you don't have the numbers? Wait and come with the numbers. Let us interrogate the numbers. Okay. But you don't throw something to Labour without providing a number because you want to court sympathy. You want the Ghanaian people to listen. They will listen. They will give you the benefit of that. But the Ghanaian people are also descending.
Okay.
With the shortest possible time, they will get to know that you are only trying to, get their sympathy and continue with your own impunity.
We are grateful. Dr. Tiakabiru Mahama, I'm indeed grateful for your time, really, for joining us here on Newsnight. But let's hear from Professor Godfred Bokping on this briefly, then I'll get into more of the details in terms of the briefing from the presidency with my colleague, Maxwell Agbagba. Professor Bokping, we're grateful for your time here on Newsnight. Well, these are things you've been talking about. All the signs were clear on the wall. We've been hearing from the president today. It does appear for him that it's a crime scene. The level of recklessness for him is shocking, but no numbers were provided. You've heard from Dr. Tiakabiru Mahama, at least some provisional figures will tell us where exactly we are, or do we don't need the figures to know where exactly we are?
Well, Emefa, good evening, and good evening to our service listeners. I think that to a large extent, we know the state of the Ghanaian economy. We know the fiscal situation to a large extent. I want to believe that the December 7th election was also a clear verdict on what the state of the economy is, as people saw it, and all of that. So I want to believe that in this negotiation, government had a stronger bargaining power because they had demonstrated some leadership. Come to think of it, that it was the president had a strategy. Government had a strategy. They have been leading by example since they came to office. If you look at the size of government, if you look at the pronouncement, and if you look at other revisions in terms of how government was going to approach general government business, a cost-cutting, cost rationalization approach and all of that, I think with all these things on the table, that only strengthens the bargaining power of government, that we are not in a comfortable situation, and we ourselves are showing the leadership. We want you to bear with us. In good times, we will be able to share that together. I think that was a strategy, and I think that is what leadership by example is also all about. Of course, one would have wished that government could have done better in terms of the number of ministers and all of that, but I think that is a good start. Okay, all right. So if you want to look at this also, it's not unique. Emefa, they do these things to each other anytime there's a regime change. In 2001, the economy was painted in a certain negative sense, which also consolidated the goodwill the government had. On the back of that, they did huge utility adjustments, all in the name of trying to clear imbalances and all of that. Again, if you remember 2017, the discussions that occasioned the new government about how reckless the previous government had been, there was even a deficit of over 7 billion and all of that the claim was done off the gift mix platform and all of that. They do all these things just to make the outgone administration look that bad, right? And so they do these things to each other. But of course, beyond the exaggeration and all of that, the numbers largely do support the president, the government position that things are not that good. If you look at it across energy sector indebtedness, and the numbers that are coming through, the fact that the possibility of some reasonable level of doomsday and all of that, even across our state-owned enterprises, things don't look that good.
Okay, but really, the argument to Prof is that at the height of all the doom and gloom, and when it comes to the economy, it wasn't 10% that was giving us base pay. Could we not have done better? 10% is enough?
There is always room to do better. You have to look at the numbers. And I think that at this stage, the numbers are also still trickling in and all of that. I think it is just important that government is mindful not to signal to creditors, not to signal to the market that, you know what, we'll be able to increase consumption-based expenditure necessarily and all of that. I think 2017, we did a base pay increase of about 12.5% or so, right, in 2017. And if you look at it across time and all of that, of course, in a run-up to the election, government would always try to cut the voting from organized labor, and therefore election years, a year before or so, you always want to treat that as an outlier because the intention really may not be a reflection of the reality, but more of cutting the electorate and all of. But so I think that given where we are, I believe that organized labor would have considered a number of factors in saying that, you know what, let's accept 10%. It's our way of also meeting government halfway. But they will be monitoring. They will be monitoring government actions. They will be monitoring development because don't forget that organized labor, they also have a strong research department. They also have the numbers. They are also doing the analysis and all of that. So I think that let's make progress.
Okay. Well, we are grateful. That's Professor Godfred Bokping. Let me bring in Angel Kabonu, who is the president of NAGRAT. We're grateful for your time here on Newsnight. Let me hear from you on this. I'm sure your members or your side, you must be happy with what you got. 10%. That's enough for you, right?
Well, I don't think to be happy is the right expression to use. It's not a question of being happy. It's a question of looking at presentation made by government, plea made by government, the situation in the economy, and labor taking the most prudent decision.
But what exactly were we looking for when we went to the table, if I may ask?
We went to the table with above 50%, reflecting the realities of how the economy is hitting hard on the Ghanaian worker. And let me say, if government had given us 50%, it would still not be enough to address our financial and economic challenges. It will not be enough. Because looking at the prices of goods and services in the country currently, and so on and so forth. However, the government also painted a very gloomy picture of the economy and raised aspects of challenges that is afflicting this economy. And that if government is not too careful, the economy will go awry. And if the economy goes awry, there will also not be the institution for even any worker to work. Economists are even indicating that even the 10% is also going to hit hard at the Ghanaian economy, fragile as it looks as I speak to you. So it is a combination of several issues that led to the arrival of the 10%.
But at least you heard the president that in that appeal to you about the cuts in budget, at least even if it affects the presidency, and that when the cake gets bigger, at least you would also get what exactly you are asking for. That's good enough assurance for you, or is an assurance that you feel is just for today and something may change tomorrow?
Well, we are also part of the country and the economy. We are observing the situation very critically. The president assured Labour today that Article 71 office holders are not going to get anything far above what we have had at base pay negotiations. The president also indicated the formation of a monuments board, a monuments and income board that would determine how much, even from the president, one takes, so that we will have a single lane sort of salary structure and all that. So government is promised us that they are also going to do a lot of cuts in expenditure, so that we all feel that we are in the same boat that we have to salvage from the doldrums that we find ourselves.
Okay, we'll leave you here. We're grateful for your time. That's Angel Kabono. He's the president of NAGRAT. Well, I've been telling you about the composition of cabinet. I bet you're wondering who made it and who didn't in terms of the appointments that have been made. Well, Phyllis Kwachofosu has been outlining. He's been giving that full list, and the presidential affairs correspondent Maxwell Agbaba will join us shortly with details of that, and he joins us on the line. Maxwell, so there were other things that came up, especially the 24-hour economy. We'll talk about it, but there was that announcement about the full list of cabinet.
Yes, Emefa. So we know that cabinet meetings are primarily attended by the president, vice president, and ministers of state who are designated as cabinet members. We have 19 core members. However, invited cabinet members are also sometimes invited to be part of the meeting based on their expertise or their relevance for the discussion. So today, for instance, like this, we saw the sports minister Kofi Adams, present at the first cabinet meeting. But we have the core cabinet ministers, 19 of them. We have the Minister for Finance, Katswel Atuforsin. We have the Minister for the Interior, Muntaka Mohammed Mubarak. We have the Minister for Health. We have the Minister for Defense. We have the Attorney General and Minister for Justice. The presidential spokesperson has been providing the full list.
First on the list is the Minister for Finance, the Minister for the Interior, Minister for Health, Minister for Defense, the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, the Minister for Energy and Green Transition, the Minister for Education, the Minister for Trade, Agribusiness and Industry, Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Minister for Foreign Affairs, Minister for Food and Agriculture, Minister for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovations, the Minister for Roads and Highways, Minister for Environment, Science and Technology, Minister for Works, Housing and Water Resources, Minister for Local Government, Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, Minister for Transport, Minister for Labor, Jobs and Employment. So these are the 19 ministers who form cabinet together with the president. Now, apart from these 19 ministers, other ministers are made to attend. And so you find that the description for that would be in attendance. So the following ministers were in attendance at cabinet today. So the Minister of Sports and Recreation, the Minister of Youth Development and Empowerment, the Minister for Fisheries and Aquaculture, Minister for Tourism, Culture and Creative Arts, Minister of State in charge of special initiatives, and my good self, the Minister for State responsible for government communications, the Minister of State for Climate Change and Sustainability, Minister of State Public Sector Reforms. So this essentially is the composition of those who attended cabinet today, in addition to the cabinet ministers.
Well, I'm sure the question about when exactly the 24-hour economic policy will be implemented came up. Maxwell, when exactly is that happening?
Yes, so we know in January 2025, President Mahama appointed Augustus Guzitano as the presidential advisor for the 24-hour economy and accelerated export development. Now, Felix Kwachiofu stated that he briefed cabinet today, and he says from that briefing, John Mahama's administration is committed to transforming Ghana's economic landscape by extending business operations beyond traditional hours to increase productivity and job creation. He says plans are far advanced on that.
The second briefing made by the presidential advisor on the 24-hour economy and accelerated export development, Mr. Guzitano, he briefed cabinet on preparations so far towards a full rollout of the 24-hour economy, and one was left with the impression that tremendous work had gone into what is arguably President Mahama's foremost transformation plan, which aims to convert the Ghanaian economy from its present state into one that never sleeps and works around the clock. The briefing from Mr. Tano and his team shows that we are on course to ensuring a smooth takeoff. And in due course, the 24-hour secretariat would be engaging the Ghanaian media so that through you, they can apprise the people of Ghana as to where things stand. And the president and everybody else in cabinet was highly confident that based on the roadmap that had been established, we were on course to achieving the objective of having a 24-hour economy.
Well, that's Felix Kwachiofu to the updates on the 24-hour economy. Some of your messages, reactions to what you've heard so far from Top Story up until now. Listening to Dr. Kabiru suggest to me that because money is available to pay debts, government should prioritize payment of labor. Payment of bondholders should not be giving importance. That's Frank in Accra. And Emmanuel in North Kaneshi says, please, the MPP man should know that without President Mahama telling us about the bad nature of the economy, we the citizens are much aware. Long even before the general elections. Nana Spintex Road says, why on earth is NPP thinking we must not believe President Mahama regarding Ghana's economy? If it is good, why is the IMF here? Ghanaian politicians must stop abusing our intelligence. Abuchi Philip from Keta says Clocksack should give us a break in this country, and John Mahama knows what he's doing. A number of them. Comrade Tamim Muisa from Boku says it's better for an honest government to offer 10% increment in base pay than for a government that took money from pensioners' pocket. Well, a number of your messages. David from Aplaku also says until the NPP left office, who knew that those who benefited from free SHS were 3.5 and not 5.7 million? We are seeing same with the economy. David from Aplaku Hills. I'll do more of your messages after business with George Riafi. Hello.
Interesting revelation by Professor Godfrey Bockman, and again, if you follow the scripts, the change in government and what they always say about the previous government and how they've managed the economy and all the rest, and it is very interesting sometimes. But just like what the numbers will give us more details about the deficit situation, the election-related spending, and how that impacts on the economy. Well, it looks like we may have some drastic cuts in the 2025 budget based on what the president has said. I'll be getting more details on that one. And also, Emefa labor economist Professor Babu reveals private sector workers can push for salary reviews based on this. He's saying that it can be a basis to push for salary reviews based on this minimum wage increment and also conditions of service as well. So the ball is in your court right now to get more, The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one stop shop for all your office essentials, Smithers Tangs and Pepsodent Herbal and Charcoal.
Son, we are so proud of you for setting up this hospital. I really love those hospital beds and waiting chairs. By the way, did you import them?
No, Dad, I didn't. I actually got them from Kindle Books and Stationery right here in Ghana.
Wow. We also bought our office supplies, safes, executive desks and chairs from Kingdom, and they gave us expert advice on how to set up our office.
Guys, that makes 3 of us. I also got our sofa and bedroom sets, plus our dining hall furniture for our new home from Kingdom.
Wow, Mom, that makes 4 of us. I usually get my stationery items from Kingdom
Kingdom, and my teacher also mentioned that our classroom furniture was provided by Kingdom.
So there you have it. Whenever you're thinking about setting up an office or acquiring furniture for your home, etc., Kingdom Books and Stationery should be your first point of call. With over 40 years experience in the industry, we stock and supply a wide variety of globally sourced office and home furniture, stationery and equipment. Visit our head office, Osu Akwaje, or our office near the Osu Stadium. We're also in Tema Community 1, opposite Olam SHS, Kumasi KNUST campus, UCC Cape Coast, and now at the Marina Mall, Airport City. Or call us 0302 764101, 764209, or 762792. Visit our website www.kingdomgh.com.
Brush your teeth every day and night, up and down and all around, but I'm feeling bright. Brush your teeth, brush with mom and dad, underneath and in between, brush the germs away.
Pepsodent, cavity protection.
For dental stronger teeth.
This advert is FDA approved.
Hey, dear Niham Sa. And you stay soft concentrate fabric softener. I was such it move. You're sending this say, but you hear my tina watch it. New Yanets now watch it. No, be a baby, someone some demon in our say. Dear Niham say. Fair quiet, yes, sim beer association Ontario. Uses stay soft and New Yanets now watch it. Nanny boss to tap from cry. A fabric softener. And you near say, sir. Choose to stay soft. No who's so say, no. FDID a garden crack to yatu.
You welcome back to Business on News Night. Now, President John Mahama has directed the Finance Minister, Dr. Tuforson, to drastically cut government expenditure in the 2025 budget. Now, this the President argues due to the current state of the economy. The President disclosed this when he joined the final leg of meetings by the Tripartite Committee to announce a new national daily minimum wage.
Cut expenditure as much as you like. Even we ourselves in Office of Government Machinery cut as much of our budget as you like, because we all must make those sacrifices. A certain distrust of the political class has arisen, because it's like when everybody else is tightening their belts, the political class is loosening its belt. But I want to assure you that we're all going to tighten our belts, and there will be no wasteful expenditure. It is said that we create and share, and so let's start cooking the meal now so that we can share when we have created. But right now, the meal is not only insufficient, the cooking pot is even leaking.
And President John Mahama there, but for some economists, the argument is that where is the finance minister going to cut? And would it be that significant looking at the rigidity with the country's budget? Some have also argued that the capital expenditure could be the biggest casualty. Now, public sector workers will witness some 10% increase in their base pay on the single spine salary structure that is back January this year. Now, this was after government met with members of the Tripartite Committee to also agree on a new minimum wage. There is more in this report.
The 10% increase in the base will form the basis for reviewing the remuneration of public sector workers on the single spine salary structure. The statement from the Tripartite Committee showed that it will take effect from January this year to December. Government also announced a 10% increase in the national daily minimum wage, but that will take effect from March 1, 2025. Dr. Rashid Pelpo is the Minister for Labour, Jobs and Employment.
Increase national daily minimum wage by 10% over the 2024 national daily minimum wage, which translates into a new national daily minimum wage of 19.97 Ghana cedis.
Speaking at a meeting, President John Mahama urged the public sector workers to accept what government is offering now due to the current state of the economy.
Ghana is a crime scene, actually, because how a government can have been so reckless, I cannot understand. But we're faced with a reality, and our options are very few. We can behave like the ostrich and hide our heads in the sand and let the economy crash. But then what effect would it have on Ghanaian households and everybody?
But for some individuals, what could be the impact of this development on the private sector going forward when it comes to reviewing conditions of service and remuneration?
And that is the Business Desk report. And Emefa, this is what will interest you because Labour economist Professor Bawumia has revealed that workers in the private sector can use this to push for salary reviews.
So it serves as a guide for salary negotiation when it comes to as well as the public sector, particularly those on the part of the private sector. When workers are going to negotiate with their employers based on their conditions of service, this 10% increase also serves as a guide so that at least workers will know that the minimum wage has gone up, and therefore at least get something closer to that. It will also push in us. And this is meant to ensure that workers are able to, float above the minimum inflation so that their purchasing power will not decline.
Professor Bawumia is a Labour economist. Meanwhile, Chief Executive of the Ghana Employees Association, Alex Frimpong, said they will consider a request coming from workers in the private sector.
As a responsible member of the tripartite, we needed to give and take, hence arriving at those figures. Ordinarily, it would have been very difficult for employers to absorb even 1% given the current challenges. But of course, you don't go into negotiations with a fixed position. So after reconciling all the factors, we needed to also make room for other considerations and explanations given by the other social partners. It's difficult for businesses, but we believe that these are levels, especially on minimum wage, which businesses can cushion at this time in our history.
And that is the Chief Executive of the Ghana Employees Association, Alex Frimpong. Now, the Ghana Institute of Engineering is making a strong case for government to establish a professional entrepreneurship scheme as a sustainable job creation strategy for the youth. Fleet Engineering Head at the institution, Engineer Dr. Divine Okutu, emphasized the importance of such scheme to supporting artisans and enhancing their operational capabilities. He spoke to Joy Business at the program in Accra.
You know that in Ghana, people just build their shops anywhere. They don't have any planned strategy as to safety, and there are safety rules in Ghana. Now, they do the job any way they want. So we came here to talk to them to know that there are so many ways they can make the environment better, their work better, to attract more customers.
And that is the engineer Dr. Divine Okutu. He is the Fleet Engineering Head at the Ghana Institution of Engineering. And if you should turn to the stock market, if you're a shareholder of SIC Insurance, well, each share was up by 2 pesos to close at 31 pesos. MTN, for the first time in a while, has lost 5 pesos and is now worth 2 Ghana cedis, 95 pesos. ETI still doing well, up by 2 pesos to close at 57 pesos on the Ghana Stock Exchange. If you are invested in the market from the beginning of the year to now, returns are now more than 11% on the Ghana Stock Exchange. And on PM Express Business Edition tonight, we are engaging the president of the Ghana Association Industry, that is AGI, looking at the development in the sector, their expectation for the 2025 budget. As you engage Dr. Humphrey Yimdak, is the president of the Association of Ghana Industries, on PM Express Business Edition at 9 p.m. tonight on Joy News and all our social media platforms. And it's time for sports, and Musbao, it's here with the details.
Yes, George, the Ghana Football Association President Kete Kweku has denounced the violence that led to the fan's death in Swatre during his first visit to Kotoko management since the incident. He assured the club's management that the FA will pursue justice and also implement necessary changes to prevent future violence that has resulted in the death of Nana Pole.
The death of Nana Pole is not about Krobia, Kumasi, Asante Kotoko. It's not about Nana Pole and his family. It's not about the Ghana Football Association. It's about Ghana. We've lost a very, very dedicated and passionate soul, which is unreplaceable, and this is not acceptable. The FA, as we have demonstrated, will continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with Krobia, Kumasi, Asante Kotoko first and foremost, the entire family on this journey of pain, and we will go to the last line in ensuring that justice is delivered. Wherever that killer is, we will chase he or she out of their hiding place or his hiding place and bring him or her to justice. It's a sorrowful moment, but it's a good moment for us to play a positive role or to make a positive impact on our sport called football. We will continue on this journey of change, the journey that we started in 2019. And I've always said that the journey to change Ghanaian football will be tough, and we are going through a tough moment. It will be rough, like we are going through, but we will get there.
President of the FA there, Kete Kweku, and for his recent absence, he explained that he's been out of the country due to medical reasons and also attending to some other FA duties. Well, I'm not sure if you heard about this incident involving the Spanish president and this incident. Yes, well, it's been a total of 550 days after that case shook Spanish and global football. This former Spanish FA president Luis Rubiales, he's now been found guilty of sexual assault. Earlier today, Spain's High Court found that the former president of the Spanish Football Federation kissed Hermoso without consent during the medal ceremony after Spain won the Women's World Cup in August 2023. Now, the former FA president, who has always maintained the case was consensual, was fined 10,800 euros, and he was also banned from going within a 200 meters radius of Hermoso and also from communicating with her for 1 year. Well, Rubiales was acquitted of coercion for allegedly trying to pressure Hermoso into saying publicly that the kiss was consensual. So some kisses needs to be avoided, else you'll be fined. Yeah, that's it for sports. But yesterday I told you that Madrid will.
Mbappe.
Yeah,
I think at this point he's in a league of his own.
You've accepted it now. Because yesterday you were saying I told you Susum no.
Pep Guardiola. I think I believe Daniel Cranton now. The wife took away all the tactics. Musval, thank you. Well, but what can you do with 19 cities though? Okay, thank you. All right. Well, there's an increment in the minimum wage. Of course, it was 18.15 cities. Now it's 19.97 cities, almost 20 cities. But in a time of rising costs, is this enough to make a real difference in the lives of workers? What exactly are you able to do with that? And what does this increase truly mean for the average Ghanaian worker? My colleague Emmanuel Jivenu hit the streets to find out.
Joseph Ejay is a factory worker. Every day, he puts hours of hard work, but his salary barely covers his survival. 3 meals a day? That's a luxury he can't afford. For Joseph, lunch is the only proper meal he gets. His go-to choice? Beans and gari. It's cheap, filling, and keeps him going.
Thank you.
He comes to this popular joint in Kokomemle every afternoon. But even that is becoming too expensive.
Money, it can't help me. Because every day I eat 40 cedi, 50 cedi. That money there can't help me at all because it's small. It's small, yeah. A day is 30 cedi, 40 cedi price, okay for everybody. Yeah. Because the 19 points, it's not good though. I can't do anything for me at all. Because I think 30 cedi or 40 cedi is okay for everybody.
A 10% wage increase was supposed to bring relief, but for Joseph, it barely covers the cost of one meal, let alone his transport, rent, or any other daily expenses. Across town, at another food joint, Benjamin Naughty shares his frustration.
I don't think 19 or 20 cities will do something. Even what I eat in the afternoon will cost me, let me see, about 50 cedis. So giving me 19 cedis for a day, just look at it. Even giving your child maybe, let me see, 10 cedis, what can he buy with that 20 cedis or 10 cedis? So 19 cedis I don't think is good.
Benjamin's frustration is shared by many workers who feel the wage increase is out of touch with the reality of rising prices. Richard Adegu, another worker, spends 3 times the minimum wage daily, and he's not happy about it.
As a worker, to work and then be paying 90 pesos a day. What are we slaves? Are we still slaves or what? How can you cater for yourself and then your family? You can't do anything. You can't move forward.
For Richard, the financial squeeze is real. The numbers simply don't add up. But not everyone is dissatisfied. Richard Kasim, for one, believes the government is making an effort.
Last year, the previous government increased it by 23%, right? So if less than 2 months, this government is able to increase by 10%, at least it will take part of my course I'll be making for the month, which is enough for me. It has taken part of my burdens off. It's going to take off e-levy. It's going to take off betting tax. Where is he going to get the money to be able to increase above the 10%? You have to know that he's squeezing from one end to another to make sure he will cushion us for us to feel okay in this country.
A 10% increase, some call it a step in the right direction. Others say it's nowhere near enough. But what do you think? Does 19 cedis, 97 pesos a day make life better? Emmanuel Jivenu, Joy News, Accra.
Emmanuel Jivenu with that report on the minimum wage. Well, it's also a case of compliance and defiance at the same time. That's the description that's been given to the first day of Clocksack strike, as scores of clients are left stranded as a division among workers linger. We know that Clocksack had declared an indefinite strike following the appointment of Mr. Butche, Samuel Adum Butche, as the registrar of the Births and Deaths Registry. For them, he's politically tainted and must be removed, but government insists the due process of the law was actually followed. Well, Emmanuel Kweku reports in the Ashanti region that offices of members of the association remain closed as many clients were left stranded at the entrance of these offices.
A client desperately knocking at the door into the reception of the Births and Deaths Registry in Kumasi. After several attempts, workers at the office only returned to inform him about the ongoing strike.
Well, actually, this is my first time of coming to the Birth and Death Registry. And I came here actually to do my birth certificate. Yeah, so, and quite unfortunate, I didn't meet up with anyone here. So I decided going back home.
He's not alone. Many clients who trooped to the office to seek various services were turned away.
Well, I really need it within this week or ending of this month.
Why?
Because I want to do my traveling process. It will really affect me badly.
Explain to me.
Okay, because I'm going there. I have so many things to do, both working and studying.
I need a certificate for a job opportunity.
But because of birth certificate, I didn't know. I was a local shop na me saka. But me buy am saka e nim dem me horses here.
Offices at the local ministry's enclave in the region, including the Controller and Accountant General's Department, although opened, refused to serve clients. Members of the Civil and Local Government Staff Association Ghana, Clocksack, are protesting the appointment of Samuel Adum Butche as Registrar of the Births and Deaths Registry. Although the government has justified the appointment of Mr. Butche, the association argues he is a politically exposed person.
Well, in the Greater Accra region, my colleague Stephen also has been interacting with some stranded clients.
We don't know anything about that. They didn't tell us anything. When they call the number 2, they say switch off.
I'm going to use to create a Ghana card for something, but I waited for a while, almost 3 months days, but still always when I come, toss.
I had no idea. I just asked somebody here, and he said they're on strike, and I was asking, recently Clocksack were threatening strike action. So I asked if that was it, and he said yes.
Well, that's some interaction of some clients there in the Greater Accra region. And just before we head out, Member of Parliament for Akutia, NS Yaukumi, has appealed his conviction for contempt of court. According to the minority leadership, well, the MP was convicted yesterday by Akufo-Addo High Court for presenting himself to be sworn in as an MP despite an injunction granted against him. Addressing journalists in Parliament, Deputy Minority Whip Jerry Ahmed Shaib indicated that the MP has also filed an application to stay the execution of his conviction.
That a contempt matter is a quasi-criminal matter, claiming that the lawyer should have filed an appearance when somebody came to you earlier You allow the person to open a phone to give you details of a certain WhatsApp or a certain publication. But a lawyer comes to stand in for a client in a contempt matter. You are asking the lawyer to file an appearance in a quasi-criminal matter. Hey, Justice Senor Amedehe.
And that's Jerry Ameshaib, MP for Wijagbawe and Deputy Minority Whip, ending Newsnight here on Joy 99.7 FM Personality Profile with Lexus Bill is up next. Joseph Asumedunyako is an author, former banker and MD, Sagrenti Travel and Tours. Well, Sagrenti, well, okay. You want to stay for Personality Profile. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. I'm Emefa Apawu.